I will quickly go through, I guess, the common denominator questions before we open it up to more questions, inshallah. And before we do more questions, I want to go ahead and plug this in. As somebody from Muslim Legal Fund of America, if you are approached by the FBI, rule number 1, rule number 2, and rule number 3, do not talk to them without an attorney. Clear? Clear. If that happens, you give organizations like MLFA a call. We have attorneys at our disposal that their number one priority, whatever they're dealing with, the number one priority is to be present for an FBI interview. That is what we pay them to do. So make sure that you have MLFA's number and other organizations that do similar thing, where you can have an FBI, where you can have an attorney present if the FBI requests an interview with you. That answers about half the cards that I got up here. Let's see. We had a couple of questions for Kathy, which I thought were okay. That was that, and let's see here. To Kathy, what can be done to release the full report on 9/11? Till today, we do not know the whole truth, yet Muslims' lives are being affected by 9/11. Microphone's there. You want to make it? Sing it? For the recording? Oh, okay.
I don't know about that question.
You don't know about that question?
I don't really know about how to get the full report. There's also the torture report and the 9/11 report that have been redacted a lot.
All right.
There's people working on that, but I don't know a lot.
Okay, so there's that. I'll get to this in a second. Let's see here.
I'll just say
okay.
I agree about not talking to the FBI, and I've also done that work. And I have some cards if anybody wants to take one. If you're approached by the FBI, usually what happens. Usually what happens is I will call the FBI agent and say I represent you and that there's no need for them to talk to you. And usually that is the end of it, because usually it's just a fishing expedition. And occasionally it goes beyond that, but usually that's it. So I have no problem with doing that. If it goes beyond that, you know, we can talk. We got to find somebody in the city where you are. But yeah, so keep that in mind. But definitely don't talk without an attorney. It sounds easy, but it's not easy when they talk to you. They're good at getting you to talk. So remember not to.
Actually, it is the law. It is the law. It is within your rights. So you're not in violation. The law allows you to have an attorney to speak on your behalf with federal agents. And also it is for your protection and the protection of the FBI themselves too. So there's nothing wrong. We cannot tell you not to speak to them. Then that is obstruction of justice. But we can advise you to have an attorney to speak on your behalf or to be with you during any interview or talking. So we are not telling you not to, but at the same time we say you have the right to have an attorney, and that is the strongest advice. Never think you are smart enough to handle it by yourself. Never say that ever, that you are smart. It is not about smart or not smart. It is about the law. It is about your rights.
Yeah, that's right. And if you don't have an attorney, ask them for their card and tell them that you will find an attorney and that attorney will contact them.
Yes.
Next question. Well, actually, before the next question, I want to go ahead and have this plug in. We have tomorrow at 1:45, the Deputy Executive Director of Muslim Legal Fund of America, Abdullah Ma'moon, will be talking about a similar subject that we discussed today. It's called "It Could Be You. No One is Safe from Being Targeted." That'll be tomorrow, 1:45, in the room level 1 S102A. So it's in the MAS-ICNA app. Just add it to your program that you want to attend.
It's today.
That is today. I apologize. That is today.
So right after.
Sorry. So after lunch, 1:45. Go to that speaking session. Sorry. S102A. Yeah.
Yeah.
And okay. Next question. How can we as a community utilize the recent DOJ Inspector General report regarding FISA
FISA, yeah.
FISA abuses to get elements of the Patriot Act and FISA court changed?
Well, that's a good question. So as part of the Trump situation, there was a recent Inspector General report saying that in the investigation of Carter Page, which led to the whole Mueller report investigation, the FBI made mistakes and in the FISA application. And what I know is that if they made those so-called mistakes, which were actually lies in some cases, in a case that's very high profile and is being monitored a lot and then was investigated, if they do that, you can just imagine how many mistakes and lies are in pretty much all the FISA, which is foreign intelligence surveillance. It's done to a lot of Muslims. A lot of it is involved in the cases we study. And we know that there's tons of errors in those and lies, and we've never been able to get access to any of those applications. Tom Durkin, the attorney here in Chicago who represented Adel Daoud, he got granted access to it, but then the appeal court reversed it before he got to see that. So I'm really glad that this report came out, and I hope that there's more investigation. And I guess the FISA appeal court is saying that, oh, this is a problem, you need to do better in your applications. But anytime anything's totally secret like that, it lends itself to terrible abuses, especially when coupled with Islamophobia.
I'm going to couple the next couple of questions together because they're kind of related. Is on the legal level, in the legal battle, in the courtroom or in the law, what can we do as individuals in order to combat targeting, especially if we haven't experienced it on this level, whether you talk about the legal front or the social front?
Well, legally, you know, as my colleague here was saying, you know, you got to be careful. You got to avoid anybody that's talking about, you know, these, you know, terrorist attacks, and teach young people to avoid that. Whether it's an FBI informant or a real recruiter, you just have to work with the community to try to educate people about their rights and how to avoid these situations, and give people help if they're mentally ill. I mean, try to get help for people rather than, you know, throwing them to the wolves of whether it's FBI or a real terrorist. But on the legal front, once somebody's charged, it's very difficult. That's why we're trying to change the law. Some good attorneys can help, but there's not a lot they can do because the law is so bad and the sentences are so terrible.
We have a question from the audience.
Let me just interject one thing here that sometimes I want to make sure that it's part of the education. Never lie to the FBI.
Oh, good point.
Never lie to the FBI. They knock your door, you are inside, you send your wife, tell them I'm not here. And your wife says, oh, he's not here, he went there. Your wife just got 2 years in prison. Number two, speak with them with respect. They're respectful people. Not everyone is coming to do entrapment. Not everyone is a bad FBI agent. It is wrong to make that assumption. There are people trying to do their job, and you are a person who is innocent and have the right. You speak in an equal, respectful manner. You are here, sir, thank you for coming here. Give me your card. I will have my attorney to talk to you and answer any question you have. And it could be a very simple question. It could be for your own protection. It may not need to be about all terrorism. It is not everything about, did you notice that it's about terrorism kind of winded down? Because unfortunately, those who are fueling terrorism to hurt us kind of got busy doing something else. We don't hear like we used to hear in previous years. So not everybody comes sometimes necessary. I tell you, we weeded out people who've been doing bad real estate deals, hurting our own communities. The FBI discovered those, arrested those. Scams. You are victims of those scams. So not necessarily that everybody, FBI coming here, you immediately say he's coming to trap me, he's a bad guy, you know, I'm going to treat him with disrespect and get out of here. Never do that. They're doing their job, know your rights. That's simple as that. and make it very short. Don't go too much in discussion. Just take their cards or provide them your attorney's card and end of it, and never lie, and make sure that anything you say is going to be, against you in the court of law. So once we are more educated, you can easily handle any situation, no matter what it is, because you could be the target, you could be the subject of the, you could be anything. You never know what it is. So be careful, speak with respect, get their contact, and never lie.
Got a question up front. Let me go ahead and, so I don't know how many people heard that. Let me echo shortly. The sister was talking about Hamid Hayat's case, and it's a very long and interesting case, but basically what ended up happening was that he was a victim of an FBI entrapment, and he was sentenced to 24 years for a crime that he did not commit. And he had served the first 10 years before the case actually got reopened, and it was not CARE. My love and my respect for them, it was actually MLFA. Muslim Legal Fund of America was the organization that funded the legal work to provide the witnesses and other legal work that was needed to push the case forward and have it brought back in front of the same judge who convicted him the first time and have that sentence overturned. But what the sister was saying, the point that she was making was that the reason why it even got to, or one of the reasons why it got to that level, was also the social influence, right? Having a documentary made, or an episode in a documentary made, getting that social traction to get people to talk about it, right? We have this thing called freedom of speech, and people around the world are literally dying for that freedom. And we as Americans need to take advantage of this. They take advantage of this right, that if we see something wrong, we need to be not afraid to speak up. We have that obligation first as Muslims, and second as Americans. And
one more point before you. How many of you receive CARE emails? Okay. I want you to count, but didn't you notice that when somebody is doing something against the community, what's the first thing CARE says? We demand the FBI to investigate this or that, or this case or that case, right?
Correct.
Right. So when there's something, who are we going to call? It's the FBI. In as much as we denounce any entrapment and wrongdoing that they do, the point is, there are times when we need them. And they are here to protect us. And there are times when they do something wrong, we say, you did something wrong, and at least we have a recourse. And we can go to the court, we can go to their superiors. We have a way to, and thanks to organizations like this who are trying to dig and expose all the wrongdoings that have been done before, and they have successful in many cases. But the point is, even our civil rights groups, when they see something, they say, we ask the FBI to investigate. We ask the FBI to go after this group or that group or so on and so forth. So we are not talking out of the bound. We are just trying to be reasonable and wise in handling the situation. It is a tough situation, but they are law enforcement. The description is right there. They enforce the law. We want to make sure that they enforce it right. That's the whole purpose of us doing this and pushing for this, is to enforce it right and not to enforce it wrong or to take advantage of the weak and the vulnerable.
I just wanted to agree with the sister that it's really important to get support for these unfair cases, and that the media is really important and documentaries are really important. And I wanted to mention a few of them that are good that you can probably find. One is a movie that came out a few months ago called The Day Shall Come. You can Google it. It's by a British filmmaker named Chris Morris. It's kind of Hollywood. It's got Anna Kendrick. It's sort of a dark comedy. It's loosely based on the case of the Liberty City guys in Miami that were entrapped in a sting operation. Crazy stuff. They weren't even really Muslim. They were saying they were going to ride to Chicago on horses, and they didn't even know where Chicago was. But they got a lot of time. They've been released now. But it shows how ridiculous the FBI can be in these cases, and it makes its point. You can Google that one. This man, Chris Morris, that made that movie, he came via Skype to our family conference last October and had a good session with us. And then there's another one called T-Error, T in parentheses and error, and that was it won awards at Sundance as a documentary made actually filming during an active sting operation in Pittsburgh, and it's really interesting. We have a little role in it. You can find it on Netflix, T-Error. And then there's the Newburgh Sting that's on HBO, and that's about the Newburgh case. It's really well done. There's a few others, but that is really important. And then we work with journalists like Trevor Aronson, who's written a lot about sting operations, and Murtaza Hussain from The Intercept. And yeah, The Terror Factory is a book by Trevor Aronson. So the stuff is out there, and we need to let more people know about it.
Before I take more questions from the floor, I do have one more question from the card. And it's a little bit controversial. Sorry to put you on the spot, Brother Oussama. This question is for Kathy. Yes. What's wrong with what Brother Oussama Jammal said?
Oh, I didn't write that question. No, I actually agree with most of it. I agree that it's complicated, that you have to look at the individual cases, and we can let. But I mean, we probably disagree about how to interact with the FBI. We tend to use local law enforcement in New York instead of reaching out to the FBI. We have good relationships with local law enforcement and state. Not so much the FBI. We may disagree on that, but other than that, I agree that the cases are complicated, and we certainly don't support real terrorists.
No,
fair enough.
Okay, so I have enough. I'm sorry. No, one thing I think we should make a distinction between, yes, FBI agent, and we have to be very respectful. It happened to me. We were, I think 3 years before or 4 years, we were under USCMO, Muslim Advocacy Day in the national capital. I was there, and FBI people, 2 agents came to my home 50 miles away around 7 o'clock. And my wife told me that he's not here, and he's on the Capitol Hill doing for Muslim Advocacy Day. So then they gave the card, and when I went back to home after 2-3 days, so then I called, and they came again on Thursday. She told me. So then again came on the same 7:15, 7:30. So meanwhile I arranged attorney. I talked to attorneys. I took their card. And then after a couple of months, it happened. So they were so much, they were looking for the outreach of community. I think if you are doing outreach, you should have called me. It's not that I'm very unknown person over there. But anyhow, what you are looking for? No, we are looking for whether ISIS contacted you. I said, I signed a document of 120 Muslim leaders and scholars against ISIS, and it is available on the website. So why you are asking me that did ISIS contact you? Then immediately they changed the position. No, means that maybe they threatened you. I said, no, nobody threatened me, alhamdulillah. But that's fine. And the issue is, it's not that the behavior, individual behavior. The issue is the institutional behavior. Maybe it is a Congress, maybe it is an executive branch, maybe it's a FBI as an institution. They started from there that this community is culprit, and they are not innocent, and they have to prove their innocence. That is the direction, or that is the stand. We have to confront that. That starting from there, that Muslims are terrorists, unless they prove that he is not she is not a terrorist. So that stand, I think that we have to fight. Maybe in the law, maybe in the court, maybe in wherever in the meetings happen, in White House or Department of Justice or Homeland Security, wherever, that perception they have to change. And I think that fight is going on, that they should learn more about Islam, and we have to teach more about that, and also the community teaching. So it's not the issue of any respect. That definitely we should do according to our own Islamic principle. But that tendency of government or any institution of the government or federal law agencies asking or thinking of, because historically they have been doing that about Afro-American, about Italian-American. They started from that point that they are culprit, they are doing something wrong, and they have to prove. So that is the fight. I think it is going on. It is an American fight, but it is going on. With other communities, they have done it. We have to do it again, inshallah.
Yes, as the brother said, it is the institutions that we're trying to change their mindset. I tell you what, here in Chicago, back in the 90s, relationship was sore with the FBI. We had some cases here, and exactly as the brother said, they viewed the community here as if they're all culprit, they are all bad, and of course, some political motivation and instigation has been made by other groups, understanding that the majority of the Arab community in Chicago are Palestinians. So those who are against the Palestinian, they're trying to use anything they can to silence, to quit, to weaken this community. So we had a pervasive FBI presence in the community. They come like 5 o'clock in the morning, they knock the doors, they ask people questions, and they're asking them things that they should not ask about their political views, about Yasser Arafat, what you think of him, and this and that. Then we decided here at the Council of Chicago at the time, we were a very new council that was established, to go ahead and to the headquarters of FBI and file complaint. So, and I was designated to represent and go to Washington, D.C. at the time. This was back in the 90s. So we went, it was the time of Louis Freeh when he was the director of FBI. We went with a few other leaders from Washington area, and we had the meeting, almost 4 hours. And let me tell you something about the FBI. They will continue to talk to you as long as you are sitting there to talk. Believe me, they can stay the whole day. They will never complain, and they will never tell you, sorry, we gotta go. They will stay listening and talking and dragging and as much as you want. So we had there, and I had to tell them, look, my other guys, they were, asking all kind of questions and all other issues and cases. Of course, we said this is, we are complaining about this presence of the FBI, treating people, coming to people at the shopping centers. They wait for them at the parking lot. They come to people at 5 o'clock. They harass people. They come to our doctors' decisions, to their medical offices and centers. I mean, it was kind of embarrassment. It was harassment, basically. It was not investigation. It was more about harassment. So they said, oh, no, this is not our policy. This is wrong. We advise you to go ahead to the local field office, meet with them, and do some sensitivity trainings and all that stuff. So anyway, the years went on from the 90s until after 9/11. After 9/11, we have the largest Arab concentration in the Chicagoland area and the southwest side of Chicago. Those who are from Chicago know the Bridgeview area, the Mosque Foundation. Unfortunately, we have some hillbillies who wanted to march to the mosque with their cars and, American flags and, coming to our mosque. Well, our people responded by having a much bigger flag and have it in our mosque and every area. And immediately the village and others, they were protected the mosque. And from all over, nobody will in or out unless you live in there. At that time, I was out of town, and I had to drove from Nevada to Illinois to Chicago overnight. Once they allowed people to move around the country, we could not take a flight back to Chicago. I had to drive. And so when I came there, I could not get in until I showed them my driver license where I have my address. I said, I live inside. And as a matter of fact, I'm the president of the Mosque Foundation there. So anyway, and we had the SWAT teams and everybody. I mean, literally, we had really good support and protection. And immediately after that, there was a lady, I really, thank her until today. She did pretty good. She wanted to have what they call it at the time, leadership liaison meeting with all the law enforcement agencies to meet with the Muslim leadership and making sure that there's protection, there's communication, there's something, because it was really dangerous. Those who still remember 9/11, which is really terrible memory, we were living like hell. Everybody's afraid. People could not go out. We have wonderful neighbors, wonderful fellow citizens who took our wives to supermarkets to buy, and some of them even bought our groceries so that they don't feel, insecure. They held hands together, making sure that we do our Jummah prayer. There are a lot of beautiful, great stories, and at the same time, memories of terrible situations that we were living in. So they decided to do this so that they are in contact with the community, making sure genuinely if anybody is threatening you as they came to him. I know sometimes their tactics, the way they approach may not be liked, may not be familiar to people or know how to handle it, but they did approach that way. And so we started engaging with law enforcement as a leadership. Again, you never meet as one, as I said, unless you have an attorney, that's the advice. I will never tell you not to meet with anybody from federal agent because that's an obstruction of justice. So as a leadership, we've been able to meet and sit down and talk. And through these meetings, we've been able to bring a lot of complaints. And now they got to know the community. Now they had much more respect for the community. They knew that we are an affluent community. They know that we completely against any of the wrong doings and against terrorism, against violence, against all these things. The relationship here, we did not have any more cases. Before we had a lot of complaints. Now we don't have many. As a matter of fact, when the FBI director was retired, he invited us and our imam and to his retirement party. And in this retirement party, a lot of judges there. A lot of Department of Justice top people there, the attorney generals and others. And that is not usual to happen that. They showed their appreciation. And we reciprocated with appreciation to the leadership when they respected the community, when they understood who we are. We are not the bunch of sleeper cells, bunch of radicals, bunch as the other party tried to portray us. They found us exactly where we are. But that never made us silent from speaking the truth and complaining when they did something wrong. We know they did something wrong. And unfortunately, some of the members, either organizations or individuals, sometimes they mishandled their affairs. They did something wrong, maybe on goodwill, maybe because they didn't know the way to do it, and they did something wrong. And of course, as I said at the time, the FBI wanted to assure the American people they are on top of everything. So they are hungry for any case they can take and prove that they are doing their job. And unfortunately, when somebody was doing something wrong, even unintentionally, got into this quagmire. And their case became complicated, although we know they had no ill intention, they had no bad intention, they had no terrorism motivation in doing anything, just for a few, what we call technical mistakes they did. Unfortunately, they paid dearly for their lives in prisons, and alhamdulillah, they are out. They're still struggling to get out of there. Keep in mind, some agents, we understand that their promotion is based on making successful cases. It is unfortunate, but it is truth. Department of Justice, they want to make sure that they got there. They want to make the best deal out of some cases. They know they lost it, but they don't want to admit the loss. They want to get the best out of the deal so that they go to their bosses. I got you something. We understand these things do happen. We're not dumb. They know we are no longer dumb. But it is the fight that we have to take every single day. And that's why we're becoming resilient now. We now understand the system, and we will work with the system, and we believe in the system. There will be some cases, but it is not generalized. And that's something that we have to keep in mind.
We have a question at the podium.
There's many cases of mentally ill people, including here in Chicago. The FBI is still targeting mentally ill young men to make cases, and it's not right. And that's why we're pushing the EGO bill to create an entrapment defense, so that if they're targeting somebody before they're actually taking steps to doing something, then they won't be able to convict them. As far as come up afterwards and get my card, and you can have the family contact our group, Coalition for Civil Freedom, CCF, because we work with the families. There's not a lot we can do legally in most of these cases, which is why we're trying to push the EGO bill. Occasionally we get involved in something if there's an opening legally, but it's pretty rare after somebody's been convicted, and we don't take on pretrial cases. I'm the legal director, and I work part-time doing it. So it's too much to take on the whole case, but we try to give advice to lawyers who are doing it, and we work with the families, and we provide some support and legal advice. So the family can definitely contact us and maybe come to our family conference. Yes, James.
Can I make a real quick point?
Yes.
Which hasn't been made clear by the panel, but there's a difference between law enforcement and FBI targeting someone who is already predisposed to committing a crime. That's what we want. We want the FBI to target those people who are already predisposed and are planning to carry out crime, like the people who were set the bombs in the Boston Marathon and whatnot. But there's a difference between those who are not predisposed, who had no intention ever to commit a crime, except that the FBI came and said, come on, let's do it.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between predisposition to commit a crime and not having any intention. So in terms of the individuals who have mental health issues, they're not predisposed, but the FBI targets them. So these are the types of cases and incidents that we want to stop. But by and large, from your study, you've found that in the 600 or 900 or so cases, the mass majority of them, they're targeting people who are not predisposed, and only the few, 15 or so, were predisposed.
And
what we want is for the FBI to target those who are indeed potential criminals, not those who never had any intention or are suffering from mental illness or from disenfranchised communities and poor and have no money, no driver's license, and can't even read.
Yeah, and what we want to do with the EGO bill is change the definition of predisposition, because predisposition is a legal term. Right now, it's defined as anybody who gets manipulated into doing something and then doesn't back out. That's how the law defines it. It's called the ready response standard, if they have a ready response. So we want to change that definition to what you're talking about, where somebody has to actually be taking substantial steps to do something before they get entrapped, before they get manipulated by the informant. Yeah.
All right, we're already 35 minutes over time, and that's okay. It's a very